My name is Barry.
We should have some kind of plan, like who's announcing, who says
I kinda
we're
like
creating,
it, though.
we're creating Formless
Yeah.
School for Coaches.
Okay, I'll do the intro. Welcome, everybody. My name is Barry.
I'm Fitz.
This is Fitz. We've started a school called Formless. Who's it for?
School for Coaches Creating Wealth Through Love.
Wealth through love.
Right.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
So we got this beautiful response from Nidia on LinkedIn. Hi, Nidia. And we got this beautiful response from Nidia, and we're creating this video to share with you some insights that Nidia's response has elicited for us and that we think could be valuable not only to Nidia, but to everyone, whoever watches this video, all of you. So thank you, Nidia, for being the catalyst for this.
Yeah.
Here was what Nidia had to say. I watched your video, and she's talking about our first video, which
We'll put a link to it.
I'll put a link to it. The word that I don't associate myself with is wealth. It seems as if that is a motivating factor for many life coaches, not mine. I consider I have been practicing as a life coach before the profession was invented. Fast forward, I took a course and received a certificate as a life coach. I have lost 80 pounds during the pandemic, the opposite of what most people did. So my goal is to help people who, like myself, for years failed at weight loss. If I can help one person succeed and find their way, then I have accomplished another of my life, God-driven goals. Have a nice day.
So, how did this message hit you?
Wow. So, first off, I just want to say that when I saw this name, Nidia, we actually looked it up.
Yeah.
What does this name mean? And it's a Latin word that actually means safe space. And immediately, I noticed the connection between this message and a safe space. It's almost like there's a prevailing energy in corporate America and a drive to make money, to get money, and people will do whatever it takes to that end. And there's always a kind of hidden agenda. And that really puts people on guard and has people be defensive because there's always a hidden agenda, there's a lack of transparency, you can come off with a pretense like you're trying to help when in truth you're trying to get, you're trying to take. So it was serendipitous, Nidia, that your name itself means safe space. And this message communicates this deep desire and this commitment to be a safe space, to be transparent.
Also, she was a nurse for 30 years. A nurse creates safety for people in hospitals.
That's right. That's right. And to just be so clear about your goal to help people, period. You know, I don't associate myself with wealth. Right, which, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's like I'm not interested in my end game being getting, taking, money. I'm interested in my end game being love. I'm interested in my end game being service. I'm interested in my end game being fulfilling out my purpose, actualizing, and accomplishing my life's God-driven goals. And that is just so pristine and so beautiful and something that resonates deeply with us.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting because you had to start a whole conversation amongst ourselves about the fact that why did Nidia think that wealth is our end game? And then we looked more closely at the phrase we've been using, creating wealth through love.
And it's a little deceptive. It is a little deceptive because the expression, a school for coaches creating wealth through love, creates an orientation or a connotation that the end game is money. That's the end. The means is love. Now, and I'll share for myself that I've invested heavily into my own coaching over the years as a means to reaching more and more deeply into my own resourcefulness, into the possibility that I am, and as a means to learning how to live creatively from the inside out rather than reactively. And every time I've made a significant investment in my own coaching, that was me putting myself on the hook to create results. That was me creating a deep commitment to myself. Of course, the money ended up in the coach's bank account, but for me, I was kind of paying into myself. By creating that commitment, it brought forth within me a new level of willingness, a new level of resourcefulness, a new level of creativity that outside of making that kind of bold, powerful commitment was out of my reach. Maybe, at least in that time, that's how it was. So,
and I think also, by the way, there's a default context that people have when they encounter a coach, then maybe they have a few conversations, things start to move in their life, and they're like, wow, I want more of this. Where even someone of a pretty high consciousness level, the natural orientation is, why am I paying money to the coach? Because he needs to live. He or she needs to make money also, and it's their profession, and so I'm paying them. But the orientation is really like the money is for them, and that seems to be an obvious point. to people.
Well, and in that orientation, the money's actually a necessary evil, right? It's like, if I would be able to get out of the coach whatever it is that I want from them without having to pay, that would certainly be the most
Much better.
ideal case scenario, right? So that's like a really disempowered way of being in relationship with the investment into one's own growth as like a necessary evil, as like a thing that's just gotta be gotten out of the way, right? But this is precisely why I've chosen, right, and I've created the context and chosen to relate to my investments in my own coaching as a payment into myself.
It's almost like you're paying yourself.
That's right. As a way of creating deep commitment that's even bigger than I ever imagined of creating. So, in truth, to be perfectly honest, it is not the only way to facilitate the creation of a commitment. I mean, there are times that I said to someone once, I said, please go ahead and read this book, and then we can talk. Because I wanted to really communicate with him that a conversation with me, a coaching conversation, is a conversation for his life. It calls for showing up with a higher level of commitment, with a higher level of readiness, with a higher level of getting to work, with a higher level of readiness to reverse and transform default ways of thinking and orientations and contexts and perspectives. So it wasn't money, but it was a book. And it took him a few weeks. He finished the book, he got back and said, I completed the book. Right? There have been other times that I said to someone, I'd like you to go ahead and spend 100 minutes doing this work. It was a particular kind of journaling work before we have our next conversation. He actually didn't do it. So we didn't have the next conversation. Right? So,
by the way, you may have quicker paid money than done the 100 minutes.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like,
maybe.
Sometimes people will pay money and it's not even as committing them as something else that may be not money.
Right? So in all honesty, there are all kinds of ways of helping someone and supporting someone and championing someone, creating a commitment, a deep commitment to themselves and a deep commitment to coaching work, which is essentially a commitment to their own growth, to their own expansion, and to their own well-being, not only money. That being said, in our culture and in our society, money is a pretty useful, reliable, and acceptable way of creating commitment.
Yeah.
So, in truth, when we say a school for coaches creating wealth through love, it's a little deceptive. The end game is not creating money. That's not the end game. The end game is love. The end game is being a champion for what's possible for ourselves and for others. The end game is being an access point. So, media, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
so
kind
much.
of bringing this to the surface, right? Bringing the implication of the phrase creating wealth through love, the implication of the orientation that kind of creates, bringing that to our awareness, bringing that up to the surface so that we get to share about it. And you're right. It is a little deceptive, that phraseology, and I'm so happy that you brought that up so that we could share our truth, which is that the end game is love. The end game is fulfilling and achieving, as you say, our life's God-driven goals, and to be a champion for every living being. So I hope that is meaningful to you, media, and to anyone who watches this video.